The shells screamed through the Mojave sky at 300 meters per second. Kairos watched from the Krell Command observation deck as the artillery batteries unleashed their fury upon the human defensive position below. Each impact bloomed orange and white against the red Arizona sand. The temperature readings spiked 1100 degrees Celsius at the epicenter. Hot enough to vaporize flesh. Hot enough to melt titanium into slag. He had been a tactical observer for 317 cycles. 47 different conflicts across the breadth of known space. He thought quite foolishly, as it turned out, that he had witnessed every variation of warfare biology could produce. Then he met Sergeant Cole Raines. In 47 seconds, Kairos would watch this human die for the first time. The energy discharge would strike him center mass, punching through his armor, plating like it was fabric. The impact would throw him backward 3.4 meters. His vital signs would flatline. 3 days later, Cole Raines would walk into the command post and ask for coffee. But Kairos didn't know that yet. Right now, he simply recorded data. Bombardment effectiveness, 94%. Structural integrity of human fortifications, catastrophic failure. An expected survival rate, 0.03%. He composed the preliminary report in his mind. Clinical, detached, professional. Human resistance at Mojave defense line eliminated in opening barrage. Predictable outcome. Mammals lack the physiological resilience to withstand sustained bombardment of this magnitude. War Commander Thrain stood beside him, all 2.3 meters of scaled muscle and professional military bearing. His tail swished with satisfaction. The bombardment will continue for another 73 minutes, he said. His translator rendered the clicking consonants of his native language into something Kairos could understand. Then we advance. This will be concluded before the sun reaches its apex. You seem confident, Kairos observed. I have conducted this operation 217 times across 41 worlds, Thrain replied. Mammals always break, too emotional, too fragile, too, he paused, searching for the word, attached to their individual survival. Kairos made a note. Krell Commander displays standard pre-victory certainty, no indication of tactical concern. Below, another volley of shells transformed a cluster of prefabricated structures into twisted wreckage. The humans had dug in along a natural ridge formation, using the terrain to create overlapping fields of fire. Tactically sound given their limited resources. Utterly insufficient against the force Thrain had brought to bear. 847 Krell warships in high orbit, 552 ground troops already deployed, against 184 human soldiers defending a 23-kilometer line. The mathematics were brutal, the outcome inevitable. Tell me about the humans, Kairos said, activating his long-range observation lens. He could see individual figures now scrambling through the ruins of their defensive positions. Your intelligence assessment. Thrain pulled up a holographic display. Bipedal mammals, carbon-based, moderate physical capabilities, approximately 0.7 times Krell strength, 0.6 times reaction speed. Average lifespan, 72 orbital cycles of their homeworld. Notable characteristics include. He paused, his expression conveying what Kairos had learned to interpret as disdain. Pack-bonding behavior and irrational persistence in the face of superior force. That last part should have been in larger font, Kairos would think later. Perhaps with flashing lights, maybe an alarm. They have held this position for 6 days, Kairos noted, because we allowed it, to study their defensive patterns, to demonstrate the futility of resistance. Thrain's claws tapped against the console. The Council wanted evidence that these creatures cannot be integrated through diplomatic means. I am providing that evidence. Another salvo. The ground shook even from their position 12 kilometers away. Kairos's sensory organs registered the seismic activity magnitude 4.1 on the local scale. He watched a human fortification, what their military designated a hardened bunker, collapse inward as a shell struck it directly. No one could survive that. Except as Kairos would learn, humans had difficulty understanding what they could and could not survive. The bombardment continued. Methodical, relentless, efficient. Kairos documented it all his recording equipment, capturing data across 17 different spectrums. Heat signatures, electromagnetic pulses, Atmospheric composition changes. Structural failure patterns. At minute 73, the artillery ceased. Silence fell across the Mojave like a held breath. Smoke rose from 100 impact craters. The human defensive line, such as it was, had been transformed into a landscape of scorched earth and shattered concrete. Thrain studied his tactical display. Every building showed red total structural failure. Temperature readings were still climbing in some areas. 3 separate fires burned out of control. Ground forces, Thrain commanded. Advance and secure. Expect no resistance. Document all casualties for the final report. 552 Krell soldiers began moving toward the human position. Kairos watched through multiple drone feeds, his equipment tracking each unit's progress. They moved in perfect formation. Disciplined. Professional. 300 years of military doctrine made manifest. The first shot came from a collapsed bunker at bearing 093 degrees. Then the second and third. And suddenly the air was alive with weapons fire. Kiros's recording equipment struggled to track it all. Humans. Humans who should have been dead, who by every logical calculation were dead, erupted from the ruins like angry insects from a disturbed nest. And they were absolutely furious about being shelled for 2 hours and 13 minutes. Contact, a Krell squad leader transmitted. Humans they're attacking. They're actually attacking. Kairos checked his data feeds, rechecked them. The numbers made no sense. Thermal scans showed 107 distinct human heat signatures. 107, after a bombardment that should have killed everything down to the bacterial level. This is illogical, he muttered, his appendages working frantically across his recording interface. Why are they advancing? Because as Kairos would learn, humans did not read the manual on how they were supposed to behave. He zoomed one of his observation drones closer. Through the smoke and fire, he could see them now. Individual soldiers in scorched armor, firing from positions that shouldn't exist, moving with purpose through terrain that should have been impassable. One figure stood out, Sergeant Cole Rains. Kairos didn't know the name yet, but he recognized the body language, the way other humans oriented toward him, the decisive movements, the hand signals that turned chaos into coordinated action. Cole was using a damaged armored transport as mobile cover, pushing it forward, actually pushing it using his own body strength, while his squad advanced behind it, firing the entire time. Controlled bursts, measured, efficient. The Krell tried to flank them. Standard tactical response, exactly what 300 years of military doctrine prescribed. Cole grabbed what the humans called a breaching charge, actually sprinted while under fire with zero regard for his own survival directly at the flanking force and threw it into their midst. The explosion scattered Krell soldiers like leaves in wind. 3 incapacitated, 2 others forced to fall back. Cole didn't slow down, just kept running, kept shooting, and if Kairos didn't know better, he would have sworn the human was having the time of his life. These creatures are insane, Thrain said. His confidence had developed cracks. Small ones, but visible. Kairos had to agree. The battle raged for 6 hours. 6 hours of humans refusing to do what they were supposed to do, which was die. They held positions that should have been indefensible. They attacked when they should have retreated. They fought with a combination of tactical precision and absolute disregard for probability that made Kairos's analytical mind hurt. He watched Cole throughout. The human moved through the battlefield like he was personally offended by the Krell invasion. When his rifle ran out of ammunition, he picked up a Krell weapon. When that failed, he used his armored fists. When a piece of burning debris trapped 2 of his soldiers, he didn't call for assistance. He simply lifted the debris himself, 1.3 metric tons Kairos's sensors estimated. The human shouldn't have been able to move it. Cole moved it anyway. By the time the Krell forces fell back to regroup, Kairos had filled 17 data storage units with footage. His preliminary report had been deleted and restarted 4 times. How did you document something that violated every understanding of biological limitations? He settled on human forces. Demonstrate unexpected resilience and aggression. Casualties significant on both sides. Morale among human survivors remains inexplicably high. Further observation required. What he wanted to write was send help. These mammals are absolutely terrifying. I don't understand what I'm seeing. Please advise. That night, Kairos accessed the human communication networks. He shouldn't have it violated observer protocols, but he needed to understand. The humans were supposed to be demoralized, broken, preparing to surrender or flee. Instead, he heard laughter. "Still breathing, Sergeant?" someone asked over the comm channel. "Unfortunately, yes," came the reply. Cole's voice, rough, tired, but carrying something Kiros had heard before in other species. Not quite humor, not quite defiance, something uniquely human that existed in the space between those concepts. "Could be worse," another voice chimed in. "How?" "Could be raining." More laughter. They were joking. After a battle that had killed 37 of their number and wounded 62 more, they were making jokes. Kairos made a note: human psychological resilience exceeds all documented parameters. Recommend immediate revision of species threat assessment. 3 days later, Thrain brought in reinforcements. Heavier weapons, more troops, air support. He was no longer interested in studying human defensive patterns. He was interested in ending this embarrassment. "They have fortified a ridge overlooking the valley." Thrain explained, his tail no longer swishing with confidence. 12 humans. 12. And they have repelled 7 assault attempts in 41 hours. Karras pulled up the tactical feed. The ridge was a natural choke point offering excellent sight lines and limited approach vectors. The humans had turned it into a fortress. Improvised barriers, overlapping fields of fire, fighting positions that maximized their meager numbers. And in the center, directing it all, was Cole Rains. "I want continuous observation on this position," Thrain ordered. "These mammals will break. They must. It's only a matter of time." Kairos assigned 3 drones to permanent overwatch. He watched as the Krell launched assault after assault. Each time the humans held, barely, taking casualties, running low on supplies, but holding. He watched them run out of ammunition and switch to captured Krell weapons. Watch them run out of those and start using rocks. Actual rocks. One human corporal, Maya Reeves, his intelligence later confirmed, killed a Krell soldier with a stone to the head, then used his weapon to suppress an entire squad. This level of persistence, Kairos recorded into his observation log, is not documented in any known species profile. They should be exhausted. They should be traumatized. They should be dead. They are none of these things. I am forced to conclude that human psychology operates on principles not yet understood by Galactic Council xenobiology. On the 47th hour of continuous defense, Kairos noticed something in Cole's movements. A slight favoring of his left side. Slower reactions. The signs were subtle but present. The human was reaching his limit. Everyone had limits. Even humans. Even Cole Rains. The assault came on the 48th hour. Everything Thrain could spare. 200 Krell soldiers against 12 humans. Armor support. Air cover. Overwhelming force applied to a single point. This finally would be the end. Kiros watched through his primary observation drone. The fighting was brutal. Close quarters. The kind of combat where superior numbers mattered most. The humans were being driven back. Slowly. Inevitably. He saw Cole take up a position at a critical juncture, holding off an entire squad while his soldiers fell back. Saw him take hit after hit on his armor. Saw the way he moved, not the fluid efficiency from 3 days ago, but something slower, grimmer, determined. The Krell energy weapon struck him at 0347 hours local time. Kairos had the shot from 3 different angles. The blue-white discharge of the Krell rifle. The way it punched through Cole's chest armor like it was tissue paper. The impact throwing him backward. The way he hit the ground and didn't move at all. The other humans were screaming. Kairos could hear it through the comm intercepts. Grief and rage mixing into something primal. They fought harder, if such a thing was even possible, driving the Krell assault back through sheer fury. But Cole was down. Kairos zoomed his observation lens closer. Thermal signature dropping, cardiac rhythm flatline. Respiratory function ceased. He marked Sergeant Cole Rains as killed in action in his casualty report. Added him to the list. Felt something he hadn't expected to feel. Regret. This human, this insane, impossible human who fought like the universe itself, had personally wronged him, had earned Karos's respect. Not through strength or intelligence, but through something harder to quantify. Through will. Through the absolute refusal to accept that he could lose. And now he was gone. The Krell forces pulled back. They'd taken too many casualties. The ridge still stood. 12 humans had become 11, then 10, then 9. But they held. Kairos listened as the remaining humans held a brief memorial service for their fallen. They spoke about Cole with affection, about his courage, his terrible jokes, his dedication to keeping them alive, about how he'd thrown himself into the worst of the fighting to give them a chance. It was touching in a way Kairos hadn't anticipated. He'd observed hundreds of species in combat. Death was always present, but this ritual acknowledgement of loss, this verbal celebration of a life that had meant something, this was distinctly human. They loaded Cole's body onto a transport with the other casualties, secured it properly, treated it with reverence, and then they went back to fighting. Of course they did. Kairos transmitted his daily report to the Galactic Council. Human defensive action at Mojave continues. Casualties mount, but resistance persists. Notable casualty, Sergeant Cole Rains identified as key leadership element. Observed combat effectiveness. Tactical acumen and psychological resilience, far exceeding species baseline parameters. Loss will likely impact human morale and defensive cohesion. Continued observation recommended. The next Krell assault would come in 72 hours. Thrain was done with incremental victories. He was bringing everything, fire and fury and overwhelming force. The humans would break this time. They had to. Kairos found himself hoping they would surrender. These stubborn, impossible mammals had given it enough. Proven their courage, they could withdraw with honor. But Kairos was learning that humans and honor had a complicated relationship, and the concept of enough didn't seem to exist in their vocabulary. 3 days later, he would discover just how complicated that relationship was. 3 days later, Cole Rains would walk into the command post and destroy everything Kairos thought he understood about biology, death, and the very concept of when something should just have the decency to stay dead. But for now, Kairos simply watched the ridge. Watched 9 humans hold a position against impossible odds. Watched them refuse to quit. And wondered what kind of species produced soldiers like Cole Rains. What kind of world forged beings who looked at death and decided it was negotiable. He would have his answer soon enough. 3 days after Kairos marked Sergeant Cole Rains as killed in action, the impossible happened. Kairos was in the Krell Observation Center reviewing thermal scans of the human defensive perimeter when his communication intercept system picked up unusual activity. Voices on the human command channel, shouting, confusion, someone screaming. A lot of very creative human profanity that his translator struggled to render into coherent concepts. Then a voice, slightly hoarse, but unmistakable. What's everyone freaking out about? Kairos's appendages froze over his control interface. He knew that voice, had recorded it for 47 hours of continuous combat, had heard it give orders, crack jokes, rally soldiers who thought they were about to die, had heard it go silent when the energy weapon struck. He pulled up the security feed from inside the human command post. The image flickered to life. And there, standing in the center of the room while other humans stared at him like he was a ghost, was Cole Rains. Walking, talking, drinking from a canteen. Very much alive. His chest was bandaged, heavy wrapping visible beneath his open tactical vest. He looked like he'd been through fire burns on his left arm, bruising visible on his neck, a new scar cutting through his right eyebrow. But he was standing, moving, functioning. "Where's my rifle?" Cole asked, his tone casual. Like he'd just woken up from a nap instead of being clinically dead for 3 days. Kairos rewound his footage from 72 hours ago. Watched the shot again. The energy discharge. The way it punched through armor, rated to withstand temperatures of 3,000 degrees. The impact. The fall. The absolute stillness of Cole's body as his squad dragged him to cover. Dead. He had been dead. Not injured, not unconscious. Dead. Nothing survived that kind of shot. Nothing. But there he was, drinking water and asking about his weapon like death was just a minor inconvenience. Kairos transmitted an urgent message to his Galactic Council superiors. His appendages shook as he composed it. Previous casualty report requires immediate correction. Sergeant Cole Rains marked KYA 72 hours ago, status alive. Observed standing ambulatory communicating. No explanation available. Request clarification on human biological resilience parameters. Current xenobiology database appears catastrophically incomplete. The response came back within the hour. Are you certain you are observing correctly cross-reference biometric data? Confirm identity. Human cloning technology is not sufficiently advanced for replacement in this time frame. Kiros was certain. Biometric scan matched. Facial recognition matched. Voice pattern matched. Genetic markers matched. This was the same human who had taken an energy weapon to the chest and flatline. He just wasn't dead anymore. The human medical facility became Kairos's new focus. He redirected 2 observation drones, pulling data from every available source. What he discovered made his understanding of biology curl up in a corner and weep. Dr. Maya Vasquez, 42 years old, senior field physician, was arguing with Cole in a medical bay that smelled of antiseptic and determination. "You were clinically dead for 3 minutes," she said. Her voice carried the kind of exhaustion that came from saving lives in impossible conditions. 3 minutes without oxygen to your brain. Your heart stopped. We had to, she paused. We brought you back, Sergeant, barely, and now you're walking around like nothing happened. Cole shrugged. The movement made him wince. I feel fine. You don't feel fine. You're running on adrenaline and stubbornness. Vasquez pulled up a holographic display. Kiros enhanced his audio receptors to catch every word. Your cellular regeneration rate is 47 times normal human baseline. The energy weapon should have caused catastrophic tissue damage. Instead, your cells are repairing themselves at a rate I've only seen in Fairmount. She stopped. I need to run, Horst Tikan. No test, Cole said. I need to get back to my squad. You need rest, observation. Time to recover. Doc, with all due respect, I don't have time. Something in his tone made Vasquez pause, made Kairos lean closer to his observation feed. There was a weight there, knowledge, resignation. What aren't you telling me? Vasquez asked quietly. Cole was silent for a long moment. Then, how long do you think I have? The question hung in the air like smoke. Vasquez's expression shifted, understanding dawning. You know, she said. Not a question, a statement. Known for a while. Cole sat on the edge of the medical bed. For the first time since Kairos had observed him, he looked tired, truly tired. Figured it out after Nevada. The bioweapon exposure, started healing too fast, stopped getting sick, thought it was a gift. He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Took me 3 months to realize it was killing me. Karis increased recording priority. This was important. This was the answer to the impossible. Vasquez pulled up another scan, genetic analysis, cellular degradation patterns. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. Each time you heal, your telomeres degrade faster than they should. Your DNA is, she searched for the right words, burning itself out to keep you alive. How long? 4 months, maybe 6 if you avoid major trauma. But every injury, every time your body has to regenerate, I understand. Cole stood. Then I better make it count. Cole, I'm not going to spend my last few months in a hospital bed, Doc. That's not who I am. He grabbed his tactical vest from a nearby chair. My squad needs me out there. That's where I'm useful. That's where I need to be. Vasquez looked like she wanted to argue. Kiros could see it in the tension of her shoulders, the way her hands clenched. But she just nodded. At least let me monitor your vitals remotely. And for the love of everything, try not to die again. I'm running out of ways to restart your heart. Cole smiled. I'll do my best. That night, he snuck out of the medical bay. Kairos watched through thermal imaging as the sergeant made his way through the human compound, moving with the practiced stealth of someone who'd done this before. He retrieved his rifle from the armory, checked the mechanism, loaded a fresh magazine. Every movement precise, ritualistic. Then he headed for the defensive perimeter where his squad was stationed. The reunion was everything Kiros had come to expect from humans. Torres, the young private, nearly shot him. Then the squad rushed him, hugged him, punched his arm, yelled at him for scaring them, gave him coffee, and asked if he was really okay. Human emotional responses were exhausting to catalog, but Kairos was beginning to understand them. The bonds these creatures formed, pack bonding, the xenobiology reports called it, ran deeper than simple tribal affiliation. They genuinely cared about each other's survival, would fight harder to protect their squad mates, than to preserve their own lives. It made them dangerous in ways Kairos hadn't anticipated. "I'm fine," Cole told them, his voice carrying that rough certainty that made soldiers believe. "Got shot, got better. Let's get back to work." Private Lucas Torres, 24 years old, looked at his sergeant with something approaching worship. "You died, Sarge. We saw you go down." The medic said, "Death's just a strongly worded suggestion, Torres. I decided not to take it." Cole checked his rifle's optics. "Now, status report. What did I miss?" Just like that, they were soldiers again, reporting positions, ammunition counts, Krell movement patterns. Business as usual, except their sergeant had returned from the dead and was acting like it happened every Tuesday. Kiros made extensive notes. Human psychology continues to defy logical analysis. Acceptance of impossible events appears to be cultural trait. Recommend immediate escalation of species threat assessment to council. 2 days later, the Krell attacked again. Thrain had adapted his tactics, studied the human defensive patterns, brought in specialists, Krell soldiers trained in countering entrenched positions, heavy armor support, coordinated strike designed to exploit the humans' weaknesses. It almost worked. The assault began at dawn. Always dawn. Kiros was beginning to think military commanders across the galaxy shared some kind of fixation with sunrise attacks. The Krell came in hard, fast, using terrain masking to avoid the human firing positions until the last moment. 3 prongs, 1 to pin the defenders in place, 2 to flank and envelope. The humans fought brilliantly. Kairos had to admit it. Captain Jordan Kane, 38 years old, coordinated the defense with the efficiency of someone who'd studied warfare their entire life, shifting troops to meet each threat, calling in their limited artillery support at precise moments, making the Krell pay for every meter of ground. But there were only 147 humans left, against 320 Krell soldiers with armor support. The mathematics remained brutal. Kairos watched Cole's position. The sergeant was everywhere, shoring up weak points, directing fire, personally engaging Krell troops that got too close. He moved with that same fluid efficiency from before. No sign of the injuries that should have killed him. No indication that his cells were burning themselves out to keep him functional. Until the Krell breached the inner perimeter. Close quarters combat. Brutal. Chaotic. The kind of fighting where training and instinct mattered more than tactics. Kairos lost track of individual soldiers in the confusion. His drone struggled to maintain visual contact through the smoke and fire. Then he saw it, the grenade, a Krell explosive device arcing through the air, tumbling end over end toward a human fighting position. Cole's position, where 6 humans were pinned down by suppressing fire, unable to move, unable to escape. Cole saw it too. Kairos watched his thermal signature shift, head turning, tracking the grenade's trajectory. Calculating impact point, distance, time to detonation. 2 seconds, maybe less. Torres was closest to the grenade. The young private frozen, error overriding training. Unable to move. Cole moved instead. He didn't shout a warning, didn't dive for cover, didn't try to throw the grenade back. There wasn't time for any of that. He jumped on it, deliberately, consciously, throwing his own body over the explosive device to shield his squad from the blast. Kiros had 3 different camera angles, saw it from multiple perspectives. The way Cole's body covered the grenade completely, the way he pressed himself down, making himself as much of a barrier as possible. The detonation should have torn him apart. Krell grenades were designed to fragment into 347 pieces of shrapnel, each one traveling at supersonic velocity. At point-blank range, the human body, any body, would be shredded beyond recognition. The explosion came, a muffled thump absorbed by Cole's armor and flesh. Shrapnel that should have killed 6 humans instead struck only 1. Kairos marked him as killed in action for the 2nd time. His squad was screaming, raw, primal, the sound of soldiers who'd just watched their leader sacrifice himself. They didn't freeze, didn't panic. They fought with a fury that made the previous battles look restrained. Torres Young terrified. Torres grabbed a Krell rifle from a fallen enemy and emptied the entire magazine into the advancing troops. Reeves rallied 3 other soldiers and countercharged, driving the Krell back through sheer aggression. The humans were calling for medics. tactical chatter overlaid with grief and rage and desperate hope. And through it all, Kairos watched Cole's thermal signature, watched it flicker, dim, nearly go out, then stabilize, then brighten. Through the smoke a figure stood, armor shredded across the back, bleeding from multiple wounds, but standing, conscious, still somehow shooting at Krell soldiers. Medic, Cole's voice came over the comm, steady, calm, like he hadn't just used his body as a grenade suppressor. I'm gonna need a medic after we clear this position. After they cleared the position. This human had jumped on an explosive device and was planning his medical treatment around completing the mission first. Kiros stopped recording. Simply watched. His appendages hung limp over his control interface. Every biological model he'd ever studied, every understanding of what bodies could and couldn't survive. All of it was useless here. The humans rallied around Cole, fought with renewed determination, drove the Krell assault back, held their ground impossibly. When the fighting stopped, Kairos watched the medics work. Shrapnel wounds across Cole's back and legs, burns, concussion, internal bleeding. The list of injuries would have killed most species twice over. Cole was arguing with Vasquez about whether he needed surgery immediately or if it could wait until after the next expected attack. "You're going into surgery now, Sergeant," Vasquez said. Her voice carried steel. "Or I will sedate you and drag you there myself." "That seems aggressive," Cole replied. Then he passed out from blood loss. They operated on him in a field hospital while Krell artillery started shelling the valley again. Kairos listened to the surgical team work. Calm professionalism while explosions shook the building. They pulled out 17 pieces of shrapnel, repaired internal damage, patched him back together. "He'll live," Vasquez announced after 8 hours of surgery. "But he's done fighting. His body can't take more trauma." Kiros filed this report with a sense of relief. Cole had survived, against all probability. But surely now he would be evacuated, sent somewhere safe. His war was over. Kiros should have known better. 2 days later, while recovering from surgery, while supposedly under strict medical supervision, Cole disappeared from the medical facility. He went back to his squad, back to the defensive line, back to fighting. Captain Kane tried ordering him back, multiple times. Each time Cole politely declined. His squad backed him up, said they needed their sergeant, said they'd make sure he didn't push himself too hard. "Fine," Kane finally said, his voice carrying the exhaustion of someone who'd stopped being surprised by human stubbornness. "Keep your insane sergeant, but if he dies out there, I'm not explaining it to his family." "Won't die, sir," Cole replied cheerfully. "Tried it twice already this week. Didn't stick." Human humor, Kairos noted, was very dark sometimes. The next assault came that afternoon. Thrain had brought in his heaviest weapons, incendiary devices that turned oxygen into fire. Weapons designed to burn defenders out of fortified positions when conventional explosives failed. The bombardment was more intense than anything before. The entire valley shook. Monitoring equipment failed. Communication lines went down. It was total devastation. Kiros thought surely this time finally the humans were done. The incendiary rounds transformed the human defensive line into an inferno. Temperatures spiked to 2,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt rock, hot enough to boil blood inside sealed armor. The screaming on the human comms was horrible to hear. Soldiers burning alive, calling for help that couldn't reach them. The sound of biology failing under conditions nothing was designed to survive. For the first time, the human lines broke. They fell back, dragging wounded, coughing from smoke inhalation, armor scorched black. Desperate, defeated. Thrain was triumphant. Finally they break. The human retreat was orderly but urgent. They fell back to secondary positions deeper in the valley. The Krell followed, pressing the advantage, determined to end this, to crush the mammals who'd defied them for too long. That's when the explosion started. The entire approach the humans had just abandoned, every meter of it detonated. Mines, improvised explosives, booby traps that turned the Krell's triumphant advance into a killing field. Kairos watched Thrain's tactical display light up with casualty markers. 63 Krell soldiers, gone in 30 seconds. More wounded. The advance shattered. "They planned this," Kairos said. amazement in his voice. They planned their own retreat, turned it into a trap. The humans hadn't broken. They'd adapted, recognized they couldn't hold against the incendiary attack. So they'd prepared a fallback position, mined their own defensive line, sacrificed ground to inflict maximum casualties. Even in defeat, they'd found a way to win. Thrain was no longer speaking, just staring at the casualty reports. His tail hung still. No swishing, no confidence, just shock. The battle stalemated after that. The Krell couldn't advance through the minefield without unacceptable losses. The humans couldn't push forward through the burn zones. Both sides dug in, exhausted, bleeding, waiting. Kyrus transmitted his report to the Galactic Council. It was less a clinical analysis and more a confused rambling about human resilience and his complete inability to explain what he was witnessing. The response came back 3 days later. A new assignment. The Council wanted more information about human military capabilities. Kyrus was to continue observing, this time embedded directly with human forces. They assigned him to Cole Rains's unit. Of course they did. When Kairos arrived at the human base for his new assignment, Cole was there to meet him, out of the medical bay, finally cleared for duty, despite the protests of every doctor on the base. "So you're the observer who's been documenting all our fights," Cole said, looking Kairos over with curiosity. No hostility, just interest. "I am," Kairos replied, his translator struggling with the emotional complexity he was trying to convey. "I have been a tactical observer for 317 cycles, 47 different conflicts. You, Sergeant Rains, in all that time I have never seen anything like what you and your soldiers accomplished at Mojave." Cole grinned, actually grinned. "Stick with us, observer. That was just a warm-up." A warm-up. He called that nightmare a warm-up. That's when Kairos knew his new assignment was going to be unlike anything he'd ever experienced. He wasn't just observing humans anymore. He was trying to understand them. And understanding humans, he was learning, required abandoning everything you thought you knew about what was possible. 3 days after Mojave Basin stabilized into an uneasy stalemate, Kairos found himself in a human briefing room that smelled of coffee and determination. The room was designed for 50 people. 47 humans sat in the chairs. Every single one of them had survived Mojave. Every single one of them bore scars visible and otherwise from holding that impossible line. Captain Jordan Kane stood at the front, a holographic display flickering to life behind him. The image showed a facility, large, industrial, built into the mountains outside Denver, Colorado. 3 days ago, Kane began, his voice carrying the weight of someone who'd sent soldiers to die and learned to live with it. "Intelligence confirmed what we suspected. The Krell are constructing a planet cracker weapon beneath Denver." Murmurs rippled through the room. Kairos enhanced his audio receptors. Not fear, anger, determination. These humans understood what a planet cracker meant. A device that could destabilize Earth's tectonic core, trigger volcanic eruptions, tear continents apart, end their world in 17 minutes of geological catastrophe. "Our mission," Kane continued, "is to infiltrate the facility, destroy the weapon, and extract before the Krell realize we were there." He paused. Let that sink in. "Command has calculated survival probability at 31%. Silence fell across the room. Kiros watched the humans process this. Watched them do the mathematics. 69% casualty rate. 7 out of every 10 people in this room would not come home. He waited for the protests, the objections, the very reasonable concerns about what was essentially a suicide mission. Instead, someone laughed. "Better odds than Mojave," Corporal Maya Reeves called out. More laughter, dark, sardonic. The kind of humor that emerged when you'd already looked death in the face and decided it wasn't that impressive. "At least we get to ride in dropships this time," Torres added, "instead of getting shelled for 2 days straight." They were joking about a mission with a 69% casualty rate, about walking into what might be their last fight. They were actually joking. Karis made frantic notes. Human response to high-probability death mission laughter and dark humor. "This species is either the bravest or most insane I have documented. Possibly both." Kane pulled up tactical details. Entry vectors, defense estimates, timeline. The Krell had 1,847 soldiers garrisoning the facility, plus automated defenses, plus the natural advantage of fighting on their own ground. 47 humans against a fortified position defended by nearly 2,000 enemy troops. Questions, Kane asked. Cole raised his hand. When do we leave Munburn? 6 hours. Get your gear ready. Get some rest if you can. Kane's expression softened slightly. And if you have people you want to call, anyone you need to talk to, now's the time. The briefing ended. Humans filed out talking quietly among themselves, making plans, checking equipment, writing letters that might need to be sent home. Kairos caught up with Cole in the armory. The sergeant was cleaning his rifle with the ritualistic precision of someone who'd done it 10,000 times. Each movement deliberate, meditative. You're going to die on this mission, Kairos said. Blunt, direct. His species didn't believe in gentle euphemisms. Probably, Cole agreed. He didn't look up from his work. You died twice at Mojave. Your body is deteriorating. Dr. Vasquez says you have weeks left, maybe days if you sustain more trauma. Kiros's appendages gestured in what he hoped conveyed urgency. This mission will kill you. Permanently. Yeah. Cole held the rifle up to the light, checking the barrel. I know. Then why volunteer? Cole was quiet for a long moment. Then he set the rifle down, looked at Kairos with eyes that had seen too much death, dealt too much of it. Because someone has to. 4 words, simple, final, containing an entire philosophy Kairos was still struggling to understand. Your species doesn't value individual survival, Kairos observed. We do, more than you'd think. Cole started reassembling the rifle. But we value something else more. The people we're protecting, the world we're defending, the idea that our lives should matter, should mean something. You could survive this war, request safer assignments, live out your remaining time in peace. Peace, Cole smiled, no humor in it. There's no peace while that weapon exists, while my people are in danger, while someone needs to stand up and fight. He finished with the rifle. Loaded a magazine. I'm dying anyway, Kairos. The bioweapon exposure made sure of that, so I get to choose. Waste away in a hospital bed or make my death count for something. He stood, slung the rifle over his shoulder. I choose to matter. Kairos had no response to that. What could you say to a being who'd looked at their own mortality and turned it into a weapon? 6 hours later, they were in the dropship. 47 individual insertion pods, each one a metal coffin designed to carry a human through atmospheric entry at speeds that would liquefy most species. The pods would scatter, make tracking difficult, reduce the chance of total mission failure if one was shot down. Kairos had his own pod, specially modified for his physiology. The human engineers had done the work in 4 hours. Apologized that it wasn't more comfortable. Like comfort mattered when you were falling through fire toward almost certain death. Cole's pod was next to his in the launch bay. The sergeant was running final checks, calm, focused, like this was routine. Nervous, Cole asked over the comm system. I am a non-combatant observer documenting a suicide mission, Kairos replied. What do you think? Fair point. Cole paused. Look, Kairos, I know this seems crazy, but we've done crazier things, trust me. You died twice at Mojave. Yeah, but I got better twice. That's a perfect record. Human logic remained an oxymoron. The drop was everything Kairos feared. Screaming through the atmosphere in a metal coffin, watching the heat shields glow, feeling the pod shake like it was tearing itself apart, praying to deities he didn't believe in that the parachutes would deploy, that the retro rockets would fire, that he would survive the next 90 seconds. All 47 pods made it down. Perfect insertion. For a moment, Kairos dared to hope that maybe this mission would actually succeed. They landed in forest 20 kilometers from the target. The pods camouflaged and abandoned. The team assembled in less than 10 minutes. No words needed, just silent efficiency. 47 humans moving through hostile territory like ghosts. Kane led, Cole's squad on point. Kairos stayed in the middle of the formation, trying to keep up with humans who moved through rough terrain like it was a casual stroll. They covered 15 kilometers in 4 hours. Not a word spoken, just silent movement through enemy territory. When humans wanted to be quiet, Kairos discovered they could be quieter than thought itself. Then they hit the patrol, a Krell scouting party, 28 soldiers, walking directly into their path. There was no time to hide, no time to evade. They were spotted immediately. What happened next took less than 30 seconds. The humans moved with speed and coordination that Kairos barely tracked. Suppressed weapons, precise shots, and the entire Krell patrol was down before they could transmit a warning. Clear, Cole reported quietly. No alarm sent. We're still good. They continued moving. Stepping over Krell bodies like this was routine. It probably was. The facility came into view as the sun was setting. It was enormous. A sprawling complex of buildings and defensive structures built into the mountainside. Walls, guard towers, sensor arrays, and enough soldiers to garrison a small city. They were supposed to sneak into that. Kane called the team leaders together for a quick briefing. Kairos listened in, recording everything. We breach here, Kane said, indicating a point on his tactical display. Weak spot in the sensor coverage. Once inside, we split. Alpha team takes out the power station. Bravo team secures the command center. Charlie team, that's us, goes for the weapon itself, plants the charges. What about extraction? Someone asked. Kane was quiet for a moment. If we complete the mission, extraction teams will be waiting at these coordinates. If we don't complete the mission, he didn't finish, didn't need to. The humans nodded like this was perfectly reasonable planning. The infiltration began at midnight. Using equipment Kairos didn't fully understand, the humans cut through the perimeter fence without triggering sensors. They slipped inside, moving between patrol routes. Avoiding guard posts, 47 people sneaking through one of the most secure facilities in the sector. It worked for exactly 19 minutes. Then a Krell guard on routine patrol saw them. Wrong place, wrong time, pure chance. He reached for his communicator, died before he could transmit, but the damage was done. His missed check-in would trigger an alarm within minutes. Double time, Kane ordered, voice tight. We have maybe 6 minutes before this place locks down. They ran, so much for stealth. The teams split up, racing for their objectives, trying to complete the mission before the entire facility came down on their heads. Charlie Team Cole's squad plus Kairos sprinted through corridors, past storage areas, taking down scattered Krell soldiers who were still confused about what was happening. Then the alarms went off. Every light in the facility turned red. Blast doors started closing. Faster, Cole urged. We need to reach the weapon bay before they seal it. They made it with seconds to spare, sliding under a descending blast door that would have cut them in half. On the other side was a massive chamber, and in the center of it was the weapon. Kairos recognized the design immediately, a planet cracker. Massive, elegant in its terrible purpose. If the Krell completed this, they could destroy Earth, tear it apart from the inside out. Plant the charges, Kane ordered. We have maybe 10 minutes before the Krell breach this chamber. Specialist Derek Flynn went to work, setting explosive charges around the weapon's power core, working with steady hands despite the alarms, despite the sounds of Krell forces mobilizing throughout the complex. The rest of them set up defensive positions at the entrances, preparing for the inevitable assault. It came faster than expected. Krell soldiers poured through every access point. Suddenly, Charlie Team was in a firefight. Close quarters. Brutal. The kind of combat where there was no room for mistakes. The humans held their positions, training and experience showing as they methodically cut down attackers. Kairos crouched behind a console, recording everything, watching humans fight with precision that contradicted their reputation for chaos. They covered each other, called out targets, moved like parts of a single organism. And in the center of it all, directing everything, was Cole. Charges set, Flynn called out. 5-minute timer. We need to leave now. Fall back, Kane ordered. Controlled retreat to the extraction point. They ran, fighting as they went. The Krell were everywhere now, the entire facility mobilized. Charlie Team took casualties. 3 humans fell in the first quarter, 2 more at a checkpoint. But they kept moving, bleeding, dying, but moving. They emerged into the main courtyard. Between them and the perimeter fence they'd cut through hours ago, between them and escape, stood 217 Krell soldiers. Oh, someone muttered. That's not good. Kane checked his tactical display. 2 minutes 47 seconds till detonation. We're still inside the blast radius. No alternate route, no time to find one. Just 217 enemies between 47 humans and survival. Someone said, that's impossible. Cole looked at them, and he was smiling. Actually smiling. You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means. Then he charged, just started running, directly at 217 enemy soldiers, firing as he went. His squad, because they were all apparently insane, charged with him. The rest of the team had maybe 2 seconds to decide. Follow the crazy humans or stay behind and die when the facility exploded. It wasn't really a choice. They all charged. What followed was less a battle and more controlled chaos. The humans hit the Krell line like a hammer, not trying to fight everyone, just punching through, creating a gap, using speed and surprise in absolute disregard for their own safety. Casualties mounted. 8 more humans fell, buying seconds with their lives, buying distance, buying survival for the others. Kairos ran in the middle of it all, recording equipment clutched to his chest, watching humans die so others could live, watching them make that choice without hesitation, without question. They hit the perimeter fence. Some went over, some went through, some just blasted holes and kept running. The Krell were right behind them, firing, pursuing, and somewhere behind them, that weapon facility was about to explode. Run, Kane was shouting. Just run. They ran through the forest, away from the facility, as fast as biology could carry them. Kairos lost count of who was still with them, just focused on running, on surviving the next few seconds. The explosion when it came was everything they'd hoped for and more. The weapon detonated, taking the entire facility with it. The shockwave knocked them down, sent trees flying, turned night into day for one brief terrible moment. Kairos lay on the ground, his audio sensors ringing, his visual inputs filled with white light, wondering if he was dead. Then he heard voices, human voices, counting off, checking in, confirming who was still alive. 19 lost, 28 survived, including Cole, Kane, and by some miracle, Kairos himself. They'd done it, completed the mission, destroyed the weapon, survived. The extraction took 2 hours. Human ships swooped in under cover of the confusion, picked them up, jumped to hyperspace before the Krell could organize a response. In the transport back to base, Kairos sat next to Cole. The sergeant was bandaged again, had taken shrapnel from the explosion, but was alive, already making plans for the next mission. That was the most insane thing I have ever witnessed, Kairos said. That was Tuesday, Cole replied. Wait till you see what we do when things get really difficult. Kairos looked at this human, this impossible creature who had been shot, burned, blown up multiple times and kept coming back for more. Why do you keep doing this? You could request safer assignments. You've more than earned it. Cole was quiet for a moment, looking at the surviving members of his squad, at Torres, who'd frozen at Mojave but charged through 200 Krell at Denver, at Reeves, who had learned to kill with rocks and rifles and anything else she could find, at Flynn, who'd planted charges with steady hands while the world fell apart around him. Because someone has to, Cole said finally. If people like us don't stand up and fight, then who will? Every mission we complete, every weapon we destroy, every battle we win, it means someone back home gets to live in peace for another day. Even if it kills you. Especially if it kills me. Cole looked at Kairos directly. That's the deal, Kairos. That's what soldiers do. We go into the dark places so others don't have to. We face the impossible so everyone else can sleep safely. And yeah, a lot of us don't come back, but the ones who do, we make sure their sacrifice meant something. Kairos had no response. What could you say? This was what humans were. Not the strongest species, not the smartest, not the longest lived, but the most determined, the most stubborn, the ones who would stare down impossible odds and charge anyway because someone had to. They returned to base to a muted welcome. Command was ecstatic. The mission had succeeded beyond expectations. The planet cracker was destroyed. Earth was safe. For now. But there were 19 empty seats on the transport. 19 humans who would never go home. never see their families, never laugh or cry or live again. Cole and his squad were decorated, given medals for valor, and immediately assigned to the next impossible mission, because apparently success was rewarded with more chances to die. Kairos submitted his report to the Galactic Council. It was different from his earlier observations. He wrote about human capability, their tactics and technology, but mostly he wrote about their character, their willingness to sacrifice, their refusal to quit, their absolute certainty that even when facing impossible odds, they could still make a difference. The Council's response surprised him. They wanted more observations, wanted him to continue documenting human military operations. They were beginning to understand, as Kairos had, that humans were unlike any species they'd encountered before. 3 weeks later, Kairos was back at the base. Preparing for another deployment, he found Cole in the training bay, running the same drills, preparing for the next mission. "Observer Kairos," Cole greeted him with genuine warmth. "Back for more? Apparently I have not learned my lesson about staying away from humans who get shot repeatedly." Cole laughed. "Come on, we're shipping out in 4 hours. Captain Kane has a new mission. Something about infiltrating a Krell command station in Utah." "That sounds suicidal." "Yeah, probably, but someone has to do it." Kairos followed him, recording equipment ready, preparing to document whatever madness humans would unleash next. He had started this assignment thinking he would observe a new species in combat. Instead, he'd found something far more valuable. He'd found the answer to a question the Galactic Council had been asking for years. What makes a species truly dangerous? Not technology, not numbers, not even raw physical capability. Will, determination. The absolute refusal to give up even when every logical calculation said defeat was certain. Humans had that in abundance. They would fight impossible battles, take impossible casualties, and somehow find a way to win. Not because they were invincible, but because they simply refused to accept that they could lose. Cole had been shot, burned, blown up. By all rights, he should be dead several times over. But he kept coming back, kept fighting, kept leading his soldiers into the darkness because that was what needed to be done. And he wasn't unique. There were thousands like him across human space, all of them carrying that same stubborn spark, that same determination to fight for what they believed in, no matter the cost. As they loaded onto the transport heading for whatever fresh madness awaited them, Kairos transmitted one final message to the Galactic Council. It was short, direct, and summarized everything he'd learned about humanity in the simplest terms possible. Recommendation: do not fight the humans. Befriend them. Because if they are on your side, you will win. And if they are against you, you have already lost. You just don't know it yet. Cole caught him sending the transmission. What was that about? Just updating my superiors on human capabilities. What did you tell them? Kairos considered his answer carefully. That you are all completely insane and we should be very grateful you are on our side. Cole laughed. The rest of the squad joined in. They thought he was joking. He wasn't, not even a little bit, because somewhere out there enemies of the Galactic Council were making plans, building weapons, preparing for war, and they had no idea what was coming for them. Sergeant Cole Rains and thousands like him, who had been shot and burned and buried and blown up, and who kept getting back up, who kept fighting, who kept winning. The galaxy was going to learn what Kairos had learned, what the Krell had learned too late. That when you kill a human, when you think you finally stop them, when you bury them and move on, you should probably check twice. Because chances are they'll report for duty anyway, and then you're in real trouble.